What are the pros and cons of being a traveling therapist? Let's talk about it. But first, hi, my name's Julia. I'm a speech language pathologist, and I've taken travel therapy assignments starting in 2010. I know the travel therapy industry inside and out, and I've been mentored to thousands of therapists along the way. Check out my channel, subscribe, and look at all my information for more details. But let's get into the heart of this piece, which are what are the pros and cons of being a traveling therapist? I'm going to share these from my personal experience, and maybe you have something to add in the comments that I'd love to know. I'm going to get started with the pros because I want to share the good stuff first, and maybe you don't even want to listen to the cons after this. The pros are just going to sell you on all things travel. First and foremost, the thing I love most about being a traveling SLP, being a traveling therapist, is the flexibility in my life it's given me. I'm contracted to work for the length of that contract, meaning if you work 3 months, 13 weeks, and then that contract's done, you don't have to work another job. You don't get paid time off, but you can take off as much time as you want in between jobs. You can work one contract a year and then work another side job or seasonal job the other part. If you're a freelancer trying to get into a new field or maybe change careers altogether, you could work one assignment a year and then do things to create other income or learn more from an education basis the rest of the year. Or you could do nothing. You could travel the world. I've done a lot of that. For many years as a traveling therapist, I worked about 2 or 3 contracts a year and then spent the rest of the time backpacking through cheaper countries across the world. And I had the money to do it because I was able to save while I was on contract and then go to places that were less expensive while I wasn't working and enjoy and travel. And I am so happy of all the experiences I had, especially in my 20s and early 30s. I'm never going to be able to have those again. Some people say you want to wait till retirement to travel, but I'll never be able to, in my retirement years, experience what I did in my 20s and 30s, just being kind of a broke backpacker. And I love those experiences, and I'm so glad I had them. Next up, big pro of travel therapy, you're going to hear this from a lot of people, is the money. So there can be a lot of money in travel therapy. As I'm talking to you now in 2023, travel therapy contracts per week after taxes can pay as much as $3,000, even $3,200, $3,300 per week after taxes. Now that's your high-end contracts. I would say your low-end contracts might pay something like $1,600 a week after taxes, and that would be for your registered therapists, your SLPs, PTs, OTs. Assistants would be a couple $100s a week lower than that. But even that's on the low end, and your median range kind of average contracts as a PT, OT, SLP, you're looking at per week take home somewhere between $1,800 a week to maybe $2,200 a week take home. So the contracts are kind of a lot of money, especially if you're coming from an area that doesn't pay therapists that well. I know when I started as a traveling therapist, my monthly take-home pay working in a skilled nursing facility the first year I was working as a therapist was $3,000 a month. I'll never forget that number because I used it to budget my money. And believe me, I had to budget hard. My student loans were $1,000 a month. The room I was renting in a 3-bedroom apartment with 2 other women plus utilities came out to around $1,000 a month. So after my basic expenses were paid and I had a car and I had some other debt and I had to put money in savings, I wasn't keeping that much money. So when I went from making $3,000 a month as a therapist to my first travel contract where I made $6,000 a month, it was like night and day, and I'll never forget that. And now rates are even higher than when I started in 2010. So my last job, I made $2,400 a week after taxes. So my monthly net take home was like right under 10 grand. And that's after taxes were taken out. That was the money that came into my bank account. So money is a huge plus of being a traveling therapist. It can be life-changing money if you want to only travel as a therapist for maybe a year and pay off debt or save for a house. It can happen. If you want to do it your whole career, it's awesome. My next top pro for being a traveling therapist is going to be the clinical education and diversity of settings you get as a traveler. As a therapist, it really dawned on me that each setting you work in and each new place you work is going to come with new learning experiences. You're working with new populations, new staff, new other therapists around you, and that's a great way to learn as a therapist. When I worked at my first building all those years back for just 1 year, I realized I kind of plateaued in what I was learning on the job, and I needed to work with new populations of patients in order to feel like I was learning new skills. I've done so much of that as a traveling therapist. I've worked in hospitals, inpatient rehabs, home health, SNFs, outpatient, you name it, I've worked there. And every place I've worked, I've grown my skills. Whereas I started travel, kind of a new clinician, not really sure of my skills or myself, I can say now I'm a confident expert level position, and so much of that has been accelerated because I've been a traveling therapist. I can't imagine having the skills I do today without working in all the different locations I have and picking up information from everywhere I worked. And on that note, one of the other best parts about being a traveling therapist is you don't have to deal with the drama of working at a place that annoys you. Meaning at the end of 13 weeks, at the end of your job, you can peace. You really don't start to deal with like work drama, work fights, like your boss annoying you. I will say if you ever extend a contract, which you can do, and stay 6 months, I do start to notice some of those work drama things between that 4 and 5 month mark. But when you're only there for 13 weeks, it's like you don't notice any of it. You don't deal with any of it. It's great. You do your job, you leave, you're out of the drama, boom. And finally, the last pro of being a traveling therapist I want to share is the independence it gives you. When you be a traveler, you are forced to do so much by yourself and for yourself. Even if you travel with a partner or a friend, you're still going to be put in situations that are going to test all of your skills. And you're going to become a more independent person who has more flexible interpersonal skills, and you're just going to be so much more well-rounded. I always think that becoming a traveler actually made me authentically myself. When I was a new grad or in school, honestly, I didn't really know who I was. I was always just kind of going with whatever my friends wanted to do, my peers, and not really exploring who I was. But being a traveling therapist put me in a situation where I was forced to really come to terms with who am I, what do I want to do, what are my goals, what do I like to do, what don't I like to do, and I've become such a happy, confident person, and really so much of that has been through travel. Now that we talked about all the good things about travel, let's of course talk about the bad sides, because you're not going to get all those good things without having to overcome some bad things. So first and foremost, I think one of the bad things about travel therapy is you're always having to move and look for jobs, meaning you're never settled. 13 weeks goes by quickly, you have to look for housing, you have to look for jobs, you have to move. It can be a lot. Truth be told, that's why I don't take very many travel assignments a year. I've prioritized my year to work 1 or 2 assignments and then come home and be like doing other things. I also do freelance writing and social media, as you can probably guess, with my other time, because traveling year after year, assignment after assignment, it can get tiring. And I've done it for many years. It's possible, but you need a break at some point. It can also be really hard to specialize. If there's a specialized skill you want, like if you're an occupational therapist who wants to go into hand therapy, or a speech language pathologist who wants to go into flexible endoscopy, those are all going to be specific skills that are going to be really hard to learn on the road. So if your career goal is to become a specialist, travel really isn't the way to do it. Travel's the way to become a really strong generalist clinician, but if you want to specialize in one thing in particular, it's going to be harder. Of course, traveling can also leave you alone and feeling isolated. I've always traveled solo, so I may feel this more than other people who might feel more comfortable if you're traveling with friends or family. But traveling can make you feel alone, and even if you are traveling with somebody, you're still away from other family and friends in your home. Finally, I'll say one of the other cons about travel therapy is just running into potential for scammers, because you're always applying for new jobs and applying for new housing and moving. There's certain communities of scammers who might try to steal your information or try to steal a housing deposit from you out there on the internet. So you do have to be careful a lot about running into any scammers. But thanks for joining me for this video on pros and cons of travel therapy. Please tell me what you think your pros and cons are in the comments. Subscribe to my channel and check out all my links to get more information. And thanks for being here, guys.